Boy, oh boy, is the transfer news really picking up surrounding Newcastle United as we head towards the 1st of June when the window opens briefly for 10 days. Manager Eddie Howe has already stated, of course, that he wants to try and bring in those signings early this summer in preparation for pre-season. The players that are mentioned today have previously been linked. There is one new one. There is players linked with moves away from Newcastle United. So let's dive in and have a look at it all. But thank you very much for watching, guys. This is the Toon Review and Newcastle United latest news. My name is Paul, and we'll start off with a few reports, not just one, but several reports this morning that Newcastle United have identified their number one target for the summer transfer window. And I don't think there's going to be many Newcastle United fans happy with this, but it's Marc Ghee. Now, as I say, this has come from several outlets this morning that Bryan Mbeumo is not the top target. Marc Ghee is still a massive fan, is Eddie Howe, and he wants to bring Ghee into Newcastle United. Now, the transfer fee will be a lot less than the initial £70 million that was banded around last summer. Apparently, Newcastle United might have a chance of getting him in for under £50 million. Now, Ghee, he had a rough start to this season, but I genuinely think his head was turned because of all the rigmarole with Newcastle United. I think Ghee honestly thought he was coming to Newcastle United last summer, that a deal would get done with Palace and he'd be in the black and white shirt. It didn't happen, and I think it took Ghee a while to get over that and start his season. He's been okay, but nowhere near the heights of what he was the season before. But manager Eddie Howe really wants him in. And look, we have to trust Eddie with this, I guess, because we know how good he is working with players. And Ghee is still young enough to learn more from Eddie and become an even better defender. And, you know, we looked on the transfer show last night and we brought up 3 different centre-backs. So if you haven't seen that, go back and watch that, because those 3 players for me are better than Marc Ghee. However, you know, who are we to argue with Eddie Howe? Because we know what he does to players. We know how good he makes players, and especially defenders. You know, we've seen it with Livramento, Lewis Hall, Emil Kraft to a degree. And now maybe Marc Ghee coming in. He can take Ghee to that next level again, get him back in the England setup and be a player for Newcastle for several years to come. Look, it's clear that we're going to go for a centre-back. I think that is one of the positions that many people have identified that Newcastle United will strengthen in the summer. So we have to now take it as, you know, not gospel that we're going for Ghee by a long way, but realise that Eddie Howe, you know, has made him a number one target last summer, and that could be the case again this summer. Mitchell was very frustrated last summer with Palace, so maybe he's not too happy about having to go in and deal with Parish again. But could that be water under the bridge now? You know, all gone. Let's go in. Fresh start, fresh negotiations. But I don't think Newcastle United would be pushed around anywhere near like they were last summer. Lessons have seriously been learned, or should have been learned, from that rigmarole. But it looks like Marc Ghee is still the very number one target for Eddie Howe in the summer. Now, one player that Aston Villa could have to sell is Jacob Ramsey, and Newcastle United heavily linked with him this morning. Now, the only reason Villa would have to sell Jacob Ramsey is because of PSR. They don't want to sell him. They have no intention of selling him, but they may be in a position that Newcastle United were last season, of course, when we lost Minte and Anderson. You know, we lost them because we had to get PSR right, or we would have lost points. Villa apparently are in a very similar situation now and will need to let one of their big players go. Now, Jacob Ramsey has previously been linked to Newcastle about a year ago, but he's come on leaps and bounds. And I've seen a lot of Jacob Ramsey this season to say, yeah, this kid is a good player. And for me, an upgrade on Joe Willock. Now, his ability to play as a left number 8 is very appealing to Eddie Howe. He can play in a couple of positions, but he can and has the ability to play left 8, which, of course, Joe Willock is there at the minute in for Joe Linton. Now, Joe Willock's not doing it for me. I think Jacob Ramsey is a huge upgrade on Willock. I really do. We've got more to come on Willock later on in the video, but this could be an absolutely brilliant signing. Now, no reports have said anything about a transfer fee. They've stipulated many times in the reports that Villa will do everything they can to hang on to him. But we know what it's like in that situation. It's tough as shit, really. But you've got to look and say, hey, we've got to get PSR under control. we've got to lose a player. And if Newcastle United go in with the right offer for Jacob Ramsey, then I think Villa would turn around and say, yes, we'll sell him and hang on to some of their other big stars. PSR is a bastard. We know it is. It's an absolute bastard. And, we suffered from it. Villa are going to suffer from it. There's other clubs suffering from it, apart from the big boys. Like Man United, who just seem to spend. Chelsea, who can sell things that belong to them to themselves to cover PSR. It's ridiculous. We all know why it's there. And I do feel for Aston Villa, but maybe this time around we are going to benefit from someone else in PSR trouble and go and get Jacob Ramsey. I think he'd be a fabulous signing. He's an excellent player and an upgrade on Joe Willock. Now, speaking of Joe Willock, Crystal Palace have declared concrete interest in Willick. Steve Parish has given the green light to pursue the Newcastle United midfielder. Now, this is completely separate from the Mark Ghee deal, so don't go thinking that, maybe we can get Ghee cheaper if we offer Joe Willock in the deal. I see what everybody means by that, but apparently this is going to be a completely separate deal, again, for PSR reasons. So this would be a separate transfer. But I think it would be a tremendous move for Joe Willock, because I don't genuinely think Joe Willock is going to fit the bill at Newcastle United now. Look, Joe Willock's been brilliant for us, and especially when he first came in on loan, made a huge difference to the team, and he's done brilliantly. But Newcastle United are in a position where we have to keep that conveyor belt moving if we are to be an elite club. And again, it would be saying, Joe, thank you for everything you've done since you've been at this club. You've done fantastic things, but the time is right now to move on. Because I think if they pursue someone like Jacob Ramsey, I think that's a brilliant upgrade on Joe Willock. And that's what we want. When you get rid of a player, what we want to see come in is an upgrade on that player who's left. And I think Jacob Ramsey's a huge upgrade on Joe Willock. But, again, no transfer fee mentioned. I mean, I don't think we'll get anywhere near the 25 that we paid for him. I'm probably thinking to myself, this is just my opinion, that maybe we'd get about 15 million quid for Joe Willock. I'm not too sure. Certainly, if I was the owner of a football club and I looked at Joe Willock's recent injuries and recent form, I don't think he would conduct a very big transfer fee. But we'll just have to wait and see on that. But I do think moving back to London as well would be good for Joe. He's back in his home area, of course, where he left Arsenal, and things could work out for him if he went to Palace, because I think he would be a first-choice midfielder for Palace, and he'd get plenty game time again if he could stay fit. But let me know, would you sell Joe Willock to Palace if they came knocking? I know we've had issues with Palace, but I said before, I think that's all water under the bridge now. We have to look at the positives and look at the benefits to a transfer like that, as far as I'm concerned. So would you let Joe Willock go to Palace if they came in for him? Now, apparently, I spoke about Mark Ghee at the start, and of course Brian Mbeumo. Newcastle are still leading the race for Mbeumo. This is according to 3 or 4 outlets, including The Athletic this morning, saying that we still lead the race for Brian Mbeumo. Of course, Manchester United have declared interest, possibly Liverpool, but Salah's since signed a new deal, so I'm not sure that appeals too much to Mbeumo. Mbeumo himself apparently is still very keen on a move to Newcastle United. Of course, he has stated in a recent interview that St James's Park was one of his favourite places to play. Christian Norgard, his teammate, has also admitted that Mbeumo is likely to leave the club in the summer. That's really the first player that I've seen come out and say that one of their teammates may well be on the way. Thomas Frank, of course, interviewed last week, said that Brentford are a selling club. He realises the situation they're in, but he hoped that Brian Mbeumo would stay. Now, he's bound to say that. Of course he wants Mbeumo to stay, but the likelihood is he leaves. But interestingly enough, still leading the race for him. I mean, if we got Ghee in and Mbeumo, I think we're going to get 2 or 3 big signings in, by the way. I'm still convinced of that. I still think we go for 3 big signings and maybe additional free transfers or whatever it may be. Or whoever goes out the door maybe gives us a little bit more money to go and get another one. But who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. But Man United, of course, already claiming that Brian Mbeumo, he'll want to go to Manchester United. I mean, honestly, it's laughable, these Manchester United fans that are coming out on YouTube and social media and saying, this player wants to sign for us, that player. What on earth is so appealing about Manchester United right now? Especially if they don't go on and win the Europa League. They're in big trouble. So they're not appealing to anybody. But, I mean, look, I genuinely think that we will get Mbeumo. I think Eddie Howe is a massive fan of Mbeumo, and we do need an upgrade on the right-hand side. Despite Jacob Murphy having a great season, we do need that upgrade. And I think in the form of Mbeumo, we get exactly that. Now, one last thing. Isaac Hayden's just recently done an interview saying how frustrated he is about his future. Now, I feel really, really sorry for Isaac Hayden because he was brilliant for us and a real model professional during some dark, dark times at St James's Park. He, when he first came to the club, there was rumblings that he wasn't happy, that he was homesick. He just got his head down. He played great football. He got a new deal. But recently, of course, he's had terrible injuries and hasn't really figured under Eddie Howe at all since the takeover. But it's his wages, guys. £40,000 a week Isaac Hayden is on. £40,000. I was staggered by that. But of course, he signed that deal while Mike Ashley was still at the club. And it was a long-term deal that he signed. So I can understand Hayden being frustrated, but I think that Newcastle United themselves would be frustrated that they've got a player on 40 grand a week who has still got another year on his contract. And we're trying now, obviously, to find him a club for next season who will try and maybe put towards his wages, because I'm sure that any club he goes to aren't going to pay the full 40 grand a week. There's no way. And let's be fair, it's likely to be another championship club, so there's no way they're going to afford 40 grand a week wages for a loan player, not in your Nelly. So Hayden's frustrated, but I think Newcastle United will be massively frustrated as well. But these are the kind of deals that's utter idiot Mike Ashley was pulling out every single month, offering these players 5-6 year deals at ridiculous wages. And, we've seen the backlash from that now. The new owners and manager, they've all had to deal with it. We as fans have said, well, why can't we get them out the club? But when you see the wages they're on, you then realise that not many clubs are going to pay that for a player that hasn't even been in the first team since the takeover. So it's so difficult for Newcastle. But obviously Hayden's frustrated himself, but I'm sure he'll be, the 40 grand a week that he's got coming through the bank account might help a little bit. But, Isaac Hayden is a professional. I've got nothing against Isaac Hayden. I think he is one of those players that genuinely wants to play football and just needs to find a club. As simple as that. But thank you very much for watching, guys. If you have enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And of course, if you're new to the channel, please do subscribe. It is completely free to do so. Make sure, though, that you hit that notification bell so you never miss an upload or a live show in the future. And of course, all your merchandise is now on the website, thetoonreview.com. Head over there, have a look. There's some fantastic stuff on there. Get yourself a nice little gift to support your favourite YouTube channel. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. We'll see you very soon. Take care.